Hello and welcome to another episode of Exponential Potential. And we're really excited to be talking with you this month. We're looking at all things new beginnings. And spring can often be the start of new beginnings. I'm a gardener, and I just love observing the little shoots as they come up. It just feels like there's new opportunity. The I'm in the northern hemisphere, so the light stronger, the days are longer. There's still a lot of rain because I'm in the UK, but it just feels hopeful. So we're really glad to be bringing a month of new beginnings, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Sean Young, who's a podcaster from the US, and we'll be diving into his story a lot more really soon. But Sean's going to be talking about aspects of new beginnings and recovery, really, and shifting forward and moving with courage, I guess. But as I say, we'll dive in. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you for reaching out and giving me this opportunity to share my story with you.
So, Sean, we've not known each other for a very long time, but you've come across as somebody who's really authentic and uh, empowering towards others. You're really open around your journey, and your journey as somebody who's a person in long term recovery. Um, both from your experiences as a veteran and also broader life experiences. But what do you mean by that term as a person in long term recovery?
So, if you look kind of at the substance that enters into somebody's body when they're in active addiction, and then they start to get into recovery, they start to practice abstinence, uh, or they stop using. Um, the effects of the drug or the alcohol will stay in somebody's body generally 2 years. So we call early recovery 2 years, right? Because you're still under the influence of the substance, whether you believe it or not, whether you have not been actively using or if you've been abstinent, you still have the effects of the substance in your body. So after that period, after that 2 year period, generally sometime in that time frame, uh, where your brain is kind of fully healed from the abuse, it's called long term recovery, and that's where we generally start to see a lot of growth in the brain and the body and just in the biopsychosocial makeup of a human being. So, long term recovery for me looks like I haven't put a substance in my body since December 7th, 2019. And that has given me the ability to be a better husband, a better father, a better human being, a just a better person all around because I'm able to give back to my community. I'm able to give my experience, strength, and hope to somebody that may not have it, may be struggling with what they're going through. So,
Mhm. And in this instance, we're talking about addictive substances, so I'm guessing alcohol and uh, drugs. But I'm guessing the term and also the way that you describe the impact on you, in terms of psychosocial, but also your brain activity. You know, recovery could apply in instances of repeat trauma or abuse or chronic stress or kind of a number of different environmental factors. But
absolutely. The act of substance abuse is not the actual use. It is the behavior around it, right? The behavior, the cravings, the I need more, the I can't get enough, the addictive part of it. Because when a substance is entered into your body, depending on the substance, whether it's a hard substance, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marijuana, something, and really, I mean, we can look at anything, break it down. Energy drinks are a drug. Coffee is a drug if it's not done in moderation because it's a mind altering substance. So if we look at that and and we look at the way that it impacts one individual, so the biopsychosocial, the biological makeup, their body. the cycle of the brain, how the brain operates, how it functions, as well as how they process things and what actually happens to the brain itself, and then the social makeup. So anything outside of that person, so job, friends, family, anything like that, substance abuse really and mental health really affect every bit of that, make up the biopsychosocial of a human being, and it starts to change their atmosphere. That's why you see a lot of alcoholics with a schizophrenic um, diagnosis if they decide to go into treatment or into recovery, is they get a schizophrenic diagnosis because some of their symptoms align with that schizophrenia. um, and then you see um, some people that have done harder drugs. They're diagnosed with a bipolar disorder because the brain is not able to function the way that it was. So they're going from highs to lows all the time. So yeah, um, substance abuse can pair along with trauma, and I had this weird like model that I thought up of when I was going through my training, and
Mm.
it's like a life event happens and it creates trauma, and that leads into addiction, right? Because we're trying to cope with what happened, or we're trying to work around what happened, but our coping skills aren't the best. They're not healthy because we haven't been taught healthy coping skills. And then so because we're in our active addiction, we either are exposed to traumatic experiences more, whether it's self-induced or induced by others, and then so we hit that mental health crisis again, and then we're like, oh well, this happened. So what I know helped me, what we thought helped us, was the substance. So we go right back to it. It's just that vicious cycle, that continuous loop until something happens to interfere, until there's a nexus that kind of crashes into that cycle, that stops that cycle of insanity. We're just going to keep going in that loop, and I've been in that loop a lot.
Mhm. Well, and when you talk about coping mechanisms, you often, sometimes I know that I've used substances to escape or to relax or, you know, to just sometimes numb the pain. It's just, particularly around substances like alcohol that are so freely available and still, you know, legalized, advertised, everything else like that. So often socially acceptable. It's something that you use, I guess, as a proxy for coping.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I've when I was drinking, I used to make up excuses as to why I was drinking, right? So it was like I had a hard day. I need a drink. I've had a great day. I need a drink. I'm not doing anything today. I need a drink. I've done everything today. I need a drink, right? So there was reasons. I found reasons to get drunk or drink, but my drinking wasn't so much I'm going to have a good time and socialize. It's like I'm going out to drink out the pub, drink out the bar, drink out the club, whatever. And I was never successful. I tried many times. I was not successful. Thank God.
So so your your story in terms of addiction, you've mentioned that kind of you've been through a lot. How long would you say that you were using substances, or yeah, how long would it be maybe harmful use in your bit?
So I'm at a hereditary disposition. So what that means is um, that I have addiction on both sides of my family. My dad was an addict. My mom was an alcoholic and addict. So I'm kind of genetically dispositioned to be an
Mhm.
addict or be an alcoholic. That's the science says it, and so diving into the science, I was kind of like, okay. But when I was younger, I didn't believe in addiction. I was like, I can quit whenever I want to. That was a lie. I started drinking. My first drink was at the age of 3, and yeah, 3 years old. I went in. My mom had some people watching me when I was a kid. She had to go work, and she came home and she found me behind the couch with a whole bunch of wine coolers just empty. Um, yeah, but I mean, it was like so that was my initial like exposure. I don't remember it. That's what she told me. And then later on in life, like I always told myself, because I seen the way my dad was and my mom was, I said, I don't want to be that. So I'm never going to drink, never going to smoke, never going to do drugs because I'm a good kid. And before the age of 18, I broke all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a promise that I made to myself that I figured that I could keep and I couldn't, without understanding the science behind it. So I started drinking at the age of 18 when I got to Italy. I had joined the army and I was this fresh, brand new soldier. And I was like, I'm going to take the world by the horns and I'm just going to, be the best I can be, try and be the upstanding citizen, that upstanding, model of what you should be. And then I got to Italy and the first weekend I was drinking like it was nobody's business. And so that was 2006. And it was just, my very first time that I drank was like you would have thought I was a professional drinker because I drank and drank and drank and drank and drank. And I was like, well, man, I have this like crazy tolerance. I can drink all the time and be okay. But I mean, in reality, everybody's seeing that I had a problem. I just wasn't ready to accept it. Um, and so I had periods of time where I quit because either somebody said, I'm going to leave you, and I didn't want to feel that pain. Um, or I had been in trouble with the army where I had done something stupid. They couldn't necessarily say it was because you're drinking, but there was something else attached to it. So, I had periods of time where I would go sober, but I wouldn't like work a program. I wouldn't be in AA. I wouldn't be in any support groups, nothing like that. And I never took anything seriously that anybody told me. And then a life event happened in 2019. Actually, 2018 kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I don't know how far I can go into it, but I had a suicide attempt while I was still in the army, and it was rough. Life was not what I had imagined it to be, and I wanted the pain to be over. And I made an attempt. Thank God I'm still here, and that I wasn't successful. And then I said I don't want to drink, right? And then I fed myself this lie that I had always told myself. I said, I'm good enough to drink one. I can drink one. And so I relapsed again, 4th of July, 2019. Yep, 2019. And that was my very last relapse. And that relapse happened or lasted for about 6 months. And I got to this point where I was drinking every day. Like it initially was, I'm just going to drink on Saturday, and then it was like, well, Friday's the weekend too. We can fit that in the schedule,
Yep.
and then it went to, well, there's days where I can drink and I'll be all right, and I can only drink so much. But then it was like I'm drinking all the time to get drunk. I was right back to where I was before, and I ended up catching an assault charge in Alaska and went to jail. And I sat in jail and was just like, it's everybody else's problem that I drink. Like I got to that point where I started blaming everybody for my problems. I said, it's everybody's problem that I drink. Everybody else has this problem. There's this old dated man. I look like a Viking, right? Because I got the big beard and it's crazy and he said, Viking, shut up. I was like, who is this guy, old man, talking to me like that? And he was like, you created all these problems in your life. When you accept it, life is going to be better. And so that was on December 27th. And I sat in jail. And initially I was like, man, screw him. He doesn't know what he's talking. He doesn't know my life. And then I really sat with what he said because I'm a reasonable person. Like if you say something that's going to like punch me to the core, I'm gonna get defensive, but then I'm gonna think about it. So I started thinking about it. And he made so much sense. And I was like, I did create all these problems in my life, and the only way that I can like fix the problems in my life is if I just quit drinking, if I can acquire time, if I can acquire skills to maintain that sobriety and not run back to the bottle. So I accepted that on December 27th, and that same day my bail had gotten posted from jail. I had gotten out of jail, and I started my essentially my rehabilitation to get me to where I am today.
Huge, though, isn't it? And and congratulations, really, and just reaching that point and making that commitment to you and to people around you in order to make that shift. And kind of just I can see in your story how every time you switched on and off the drinking for temporarily, you kind of go, yeah, I can switch it on and off. I can switch it on and off. But when you marry that back up into your earlier comment that it stays in your system for at least 2 years, you kind of just not kidding yourself, but
Yeah.
actually you're still in the grip. You're still in
Yeah.
the grip without realizing.
Well, I had gotten, when I had those periods of not drinking, I'm not going to call it sobriety because it wasn't
Mm,
true sobriety for me. Um, I always did it for somebody else. I never did it for me. I said, my daughter's mom, she's going to leave if I don't quit drinking. I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose my daughter. So I'm not going to drink. Or my wife, she's going to leave me. I don't want her to leave me. I'm going to quit drinking. So it was always for somebody else. The army said I can't drink. So I'm just not going to drink because the army said. But this time around, I got to that point where I said I have to do it for myself because God forbid my family leaves, I have nobody to be sober for. And that statement happened to me in December, and I am still sober.
oh, sorry. What you can't see is just a huge wash of holy crap. Kind of in terms of if my family leaves, I've got nobody else to do it for. And I think that must have been such a huge moment, a huge punch in the gut, a huge
Oh
punch
my
in the
God.
face.
My family was what seen me get sober. They've seen every portion of me. Right?
Mm,
My soon to be ex wife and her daughters. They see me drunk. They see me angry. They see me hateful. They've seen me getting clean and sober, and they've seen me sober. They've seen the recovery that I've made and the lives that I've impacted, and it happened at the most, I guess, unexpected moment,
mm,
and it happened so fast. I didn't have a moment to say, "But wait, why?" Right?
mm.
Um, and so I sat there with myself, and everybody that knows me is like, "Just don't drink, don't drink, don't drink." And I said, "Guys, that's not even in my brain. Alcohol is not in my brain because it's not going to fix anything that I've ever had. All these problems that are happening right now, it's not going to fix it. All it's going to do is make it worse." And like honest, if I had a Bible right here, I'd say, if I did go back to drinking in that moment, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. And that's the truth. But that was the last thing on my mind, and I'm still sober.
Mm. So I'm guessing that when you made that decision, you opened up to support, to help from around you, and I'm guessing because you've been, you know, in prison at the time, or you've been through the court system, to some extent, you had access, but it wasn't also a complete choice about whether or not you would take up the help.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I over the past 3 years, I've amassed a massive support system, not just with my family or friends, but a lot of people, podcasters, a lot of friends that I've met through recovery, through some of the other things that I do. And when I threw up pretty much the bat signal and said I need help, um, people were there, and that's what I did. I ran to my recovery skills. I didn't stick in that place of pour me, pour me, pour me. I went to my skills that I learned. Reach out, talk about it, even though it hurts and it's in the moment. Talk about it because that's the only way that you're going to start to be able to work through those problems. And yeah, I'm in a much better place now, mentally and emotionally and spiritually. Um, I can see past my own front door, and that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. And we've been talking about your podcast and how you've used your podcast as a way of exploring recovery and hearing other people's stories of recovery. And you know, that sounds like it offers a therapeutic value to you, but also really trying to hear different people's stories as well as share different people's stories. Is that why did you start the podcast?
Well, I started the podcast initially. I kind of wanted to after my first year of sobriety, because after I graduated out of my program, I entered into peer support training. And I think you know what peer support is, but so I went into training, and the last week of the training, we all had to share our story. I'm telling you, Claire, I was so terrified. I was scared because I'm like, people are going to see me for how I see myself. People are going to see through this facade that I put up, and people are going to see that I am really this worthless human being. I said that about myself, right? And so I took this index card and I put bullet points down when she said, "This is what I want you guys to talk about." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, this is going to make or break me." And my peer trainer, her name is Jen Galvin. I love that woman to death. She's awesome. She was like, "Who is going to share first?" And I was like, "I'm just going to step out and do it." So I raised my hand and shared first. And after it, I was sweating bullets. I was shaking. I was just, and this was during the pandemic too. So I'm like behind the camera, just like nervous. And I got nothing but love back. Nothing but love. I got nothing but respect and admiration. And it changed the way that I viewed myself. And it changed all that. So I said, if my story is impacting other people,
Yeah.
then other people's story is going to impact me. It's going to impact everybody else. So um, I got invited on a show that wasn't even recovery based. It was more spiritual based and supernatural based. It was a panel, and I talked on it, and I had a great time. And the guy invited me. He said, "You have a voice for podcasting. You have the know-how. All you got to do is just get started. Do you have a topic you want to cover?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he was like, "What's stopping you?" And I said, "Guess my brain." And he was like, "Just do it." So said, "I'm going to do it." And he started coaching me and mentoring me when I first started. And I figured, hey, I'm gonna lead from the front. So I'm gonna share my story first. And I shared my story first. I was terrified because it's out. You record it. It's in the atmosphere. It's online for everybody to see.
Yeah.
I got nothing but love back from it. So then I started, I stepped out of my comfort zone and started asking people to be guests on my podcast. So I started with people that I know, and then I started acquiring people that I know, and then started acquiring people that I didn't know, and then some more bigger names. And it was just like, this is awesome. It feels great. I did it for that reason, but I also did it because every single episode I go into, whether I want to be in that episode, not because the guest, but because of myself, either
Mm.
because of my day or my week, um, I learned something from them,
Yeah.
something I had never known before, and I go into every recording with an open heart, open mind, and I receive something that I needed that I didn't even know I needed. And so I really enjoy it. Not an escape. It's an addition, right? It's an
Mm.
addition to my life, and it gives me purpose.
That's just, ah, so I'm speechless on my own podcast, which is good. But actually, it there's so many elements, and thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that. And I think there are many people who mask the loneliness and self-worth, and and whichever way it comes out as a symptom, whether it's we're talking about substance here, but often it's around people pleasing, or it could be around shopping, or it could be around food, or it could be around giving. there's there's ways that you hide how you really feel about yourself. And yeah, I was so moved by your description of the scene, and I can imagine it now. And and actually, also so glad, selfishly, that you took up the suggestion of podcasting, because you've been able to bring that out more and more to people. And One of the exercises that I do as a coach with people is, and it's one that I've borrowed as well, is, what's the thing you don't want people to know about you? And it stops people in their tracks. And you can see a scram, but you can see power that comes from, "Well, actually, let's get this out, because your head makes it 10 times worse than it actually is. And human beings can surprise you. I'm guessing that's something that you found.
Mhm. Yeah. You talked about the mask, and not a lot of people talk about the mask. You're only the second person that I've met that have talked about the mask, and I appreciate that. Um, I was really comfortable behind masks, right? Like not physical masks, but like mental, metaphorical mask, right?
Mm,
I always showed up to work with a smile on my face because I didn't want anybody to know that I was struggling, right? I was, I held a position of power at work, and I was just smiles, all smiles. You couldn't tell that I was struggling, right? You didn't know that I had an addiction. You didn't know that I was suicidal. You didn't know that I was struggling with my depression, that I was suffering from anxiety, that I had zero sleep that night because I showed up to work and I put a smile on my face because that's what it was expected of me. And then when my world came crashing down and I was in the hospital, people were like, "We never knew." And I said, "I didn't want you to know.
mm,
I didn't want you to know because that's not your burden. That's mine." And through my transformation, through my new beginnings, everything, I realized that the mask is not beneficial for me. Because if I'm masking anything, if I'm masking how I feel, I'm not communicating properly. Um, I'm not able to relate to other people because, yeah, I can, I can relate to myself, but I shut you out. And that's not beneficial to any part of my life. But then the vulnerability piece, I now I've been told that I live in the deep end of things, and that's what scares people because I'm more comfortable in the deep end. I'm more comfortable talking about the issue of suicide. I'm more comfortable talking about depression, anxiety. I'm more comfortable talking about addiction and how ugly it looks when we're in it. But also the recovery portion about diving deep into yourself and really exposing yourself, like opening yourself up, exposing yourself, not just to a counselor, to your best friend, to your partner, but to the world, because that's the only way that people are going to be able to look at us and say, "Hey, alcoholics aren't just bums on the side of the road that you see
mm,
under a bridge that are asking for money." Alcoholic could look like, the successful businessman down the road that's in an ivory tower, right?
yeah.
Alcoholic could look like somebody that's wearing a uniform that is upholding the law. We are all shapes and sizes. We're not just a stereotypical figure.
Yeah, it's kind of sense of high functioning. Just
Oh
like
yeah.
that mask. And there's a lot there's a lot I can relate in terms of what you're saying there. So I had a massive burnout in 2020, and it took people by surprise, because I was the one who always had my shit together. I was the one who would be there to support other people, and nobody stopped to realize how much I'd kind of hollowed myself out in doing that. So once I stopped, I felt a husk, because that was truly what was left, because I'd done that, because I'd been wearing the mask that long. It just, everything underneath it had gone
Yeah.
in a
And
way. But
we get to that point where I don't know if you got to that point, but I got to a point where I said, "I've always been here for everybody else. Why is nobody there for me?" And it's like I made myself unavailable for people to come and
mm,
check on me, right? I wasn't honest with people. I wasn't open or vulnerable with people. I said, "I'm fine. Here's a smile," and I'm going to turn around, and you're going to see the back of my head. Um, I didn't give people that chance to be there for me and really show me that they were trustworthy of my trust, or that I was trustworthy of their trust. So, yeah, I definitely shut people out in the process and then blamed them because I shut them out. You know?
yeah, should we just ban the words "I'm fine"?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh yeah, it's like, I'm fine. Now
Yeah,
ask them again.
yeah, that's a very, very, it's very rough because I know now if somebody says, "I'm fine," I'm like, "Tell me how you really feel."
I know.
I've heard those words far too many times to know that you're not okay. Let's talk about it. What's up?
Yeah, yeah. So through your podcast, Sitting with Sean, which I really recommend you watch, and also I loved catching up on different YouTube stories because your journey as a podcaster has definitely been ups and downs. And when we've been setting this up, I've shared that I miss Batman because the first episode you had Batman in the background. Um, but you can see how you've grown. Um, are there episodes? Are there people that have really stuck out for you, or themes that have come through that you want to share?
Yeah, so I will say, the growth has been great. It's been awesome. Batman, Batman was a standee. He may make another appearance. I might go buy one and put it back in the background, but that Batman was in the background because I lived in Alaska and Batman was accessible to me. And unfortunately, I no longer live in Alaska. I live in West Virginia now, and Batman didn't make the trip with me. But we'll see
Yeah,
if
he's a
we can.
busy man. He's a
He's a
busy
busy.
man.
He has no time for Sean. Okay. But as far as episodes, so I have two different projects that I'm working on. One is Recover Out Loud, where it's the recovery portion, but it's also there's extraordinary, and I like to highlight normal everyday people that don't really have a substance abuse problem, but that I find to be very inspirational, whether it's through what they're doing or how they've overcome the odds of their circumstance, or just changed their life for the better. And so, um, I think one of my I, I have a few dream recordings that I want to do, but I got one of them knocked out of the way. And you and I were talking earlier, and I love supernatural things. I love horror movies. I'm a
Yeah.
horror movie buff. I love all of it. Actually, not too long. Actually, this past weekend, I got to drive by the steps that were in The Exorcist. So that was pretty cool.
Hey, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I took a picture of it when we were passing by it. That was pretty cool. But I got to interview a man by the name of Ralph Sarchi, and Ralph wrote a book called uh, "Deliver Us from Evil," and it ended up becoming a movie. And I seen this movie, and I was like, hmm. What really attracted me to the movie was the soundtrack was predominantly The Doors. Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah, I like The Doors,
that's pretty
and
cool.
yeah, and so I started watching this movie, and I was like, man, this is wild. And then at the end of the movie, it said, "Inspired by true events." And I said, "Oh, okay. This is about a police officer in New York City who who encounters a paranormal case and he doesn't believe in the paranormal. And then one case that he encountered changed his view on everything. And he became a demonologist. And I was like, that is super cool. Let me find this guy, see if he really exists." And when I looked up the name Ralph Sarchi on Facebook, his profile popped up. And I was like, oh, add his friend. Let's just take a shot in the dark. And this was like 2015, 2016, maybe a little bit later than that. And next day, Ralph Sarchi added you as a friend. I was like, oh, no way. So him and I, him and I became friends, and we, became not close, but we became friends. And uh, I took a shot in the dark. He's kind of retired from all the media stuff that he does now, and I said, "Ralph, dude, I find you very inspirational, and I want to hear your story. I don't even know a lot of it. I just know a fraction of it." And he said, "Absolutely." So the very first recording that I did after moving from Alaska to West Virginia, when I was still messed up here, I did a recording with Ralph, and it was amazing. I found out that not only was he a police officer, and he's been a police officer for a long time, he was at ground zero on 9/11, um, and that he was friends. I don't know like how much you like watch horror movies, but he's friends with, or he was friends, pretty much like a distant relative of Ed and Lorraine Warren, which was pretty awesome. They're demonologists, and they have the movies, the Annabelle movies, the Conjuring movies, all those.
Eh,
Those are based about them. And
right.
so this man has just lived this illustrious life, and I'm like,
Yeah.
so, like, to get to see somebody, and speak with somebody that I've kind of followed for a while now and seen some of his work and seen what he's done, it was awesome to hear his story. And I was really nervous. I was like, "Hey, I was scared." And so I started to give him the layout on my show, and he was like, "I don't wanna know." I said, why?" And he was like, "We're 2 friends talking." And I said, "Okay, alright, this just makes everything so much easier."
Yeah.
And, so it was an awesome recording. I had so much fun. I got to interview my dad a few times about his addiction, about his mental health struggle. I got to interview one of his longtime friends that grew up with him, and he's been 20 years sober, so that was awesome. I got to interview 2 of my mentors, and that was awesome to hear their story. I've heard it before, but I hadn't heard everything, and it was pretty awesome. But for me, I think every interview that I do is significant because everybody brings something different to the table. Something so small that they're like it's really inconsequential, but it's really amazing to see their transformation, to see that moment that I call it an aha moment. It's like I get it now. That to me is the most beautiful thing that you will ever see, aside from childbirth. That is the most beautiful thing that you'll ever see, is that moment when the light bulb comes on and they say, "Everything makes sense now."
Yeah. Isn't it sorry, isn't the world really weird that, we can have conversations with our friends and they're always at this level, at this level, at this level because, sometimes it's not acceptable or you kind of like the shield, the mask comes on, it's like, no, I don't wanna let you this close. And then through the power of a podcast, you can have an interview and someone, really shows their soul or, shares where they've gone. And I think people are genuinely fascinating, and I talk to people on the train, I talk to people on the bus because I'm always curious about their lives, about their stories, about their paths, and what you're describing in terms of the podcast is, I guess you only know it if you're a podcaster, but the chance to have really in depth, deep conversations and just explore people is fab.
And you find out things about your friends that you never knew, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's your friends that you've known for a long time. I have a friend, for about 12 years now, and there was one detail she told me I never knew about her. I never knew she was a heroin addict. Never knew. And
Really?
she came out and said, "Yeah, I just celebrated my 14-year clean." I said, "What?" I said, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, I was a heroin addict." And I said, "No way." And those are the small details that like I was mentioning earlier, the small little details that they're like, "Oh yeah, it is what it is." But you're like, "No, that is huge. I didn't know."
Yeah. Yeah. So, this month we're talking all about the new beginnings, really, and what that looks like. And given your journey, given what you've explored with other people, what words of encouragement would you have? What recommendations would you make, or
Mhm.
ideas?
With 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 new beginnings, for me, I know I had a big fear of the unknown, right? Especially now in my life, when I was living in Alaska and I made this commute to West Virginia, I said, "I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to happen, and I just going to have to roll with it." I got here and I made the decision to stay, and when I made the decision to stay, it was just I was so terrified because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know the car I'm going to drive. I don't know what I'm going to eat, but all I know is that this is what feels right. And I think right now in my life, I'm just going to go with what feels right, not what makes a logical sense. Because when we start stepping in the realm of this makes a logical sense, we start making decisions that not necessarily beneficial to us. So I started saying, "This feels right." And when I started saying, "This feels right, I think I'm gonna go for it," I had no chance to say, do I really wanna do this? Because it felt right.
Mm.
And so I would say to anybody that's struggling with the thought of new beginnings or want new beginnings, don't be afraid of the fear of the unknown. The unknown can bring so much beautiful, it can bring so many life altering events, beautiful events, even events that you look at and you're like, oh, this is going to be absolutely terrible. It's going to teach you a lesson. And sometimes those hard lessons are the lessons that we need to learn in order to catapult us to the next level of who we are supposed to be. Um, sometimes we need those proverbial car in the wall stop to get us to stop and be like, okay, life something in life needs to change. So do not be afraid of the unknown. Don't be afraid of a situation that may happen that is bad, because it might lead you in a direction that you need to be on, not necessarily one that you're on right now.
Mm. And from some of the other lessons that we've pulled through as well today, today it's just like open up and trust the conversation, trust the person that you're with to be vulnerable, either take the leadership in sharing or hold a space so that they can be vulnerable. Just check in with them really and say, you know what, it's safe for you to be honest. Are you really fine? What's
Yeah,
really going on, dude? I wanna help, not just go, I'm here to help
yeah,
and have
yeah.
that just actually be there for all the for the dark truth as well as the light. That's when we're most needed for each other.
One of the I hate, and I know hate's a strong word. I dislike the common sayings that you hear all the time. When you're in AA, you hear, just come back, or one day at a time. All those like sayings that you hear over time, I really don't like them, but they are all true. One that I really did not like hearing, but it was very true, and I actually, I do like it. It is trust the process. Got to trust the process, because sometimes the process is not meant to make us feel comfortable. And when we are comfortable, that's when we are at the most critical danger. So it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's all right to be uncomfortable. Live in that uncomfortability, wallow in it for a second, but realize that that uncomfortability is good for you, because it's going to get you to the next level of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the whether that be the process or whether that be the process of life is just if you're feeling comfortable, you're not growing.
Yeah,
And you're here to grow and
yeah,
to help humanity to grow as well and keep moving
yeah,
forward.
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, so how can people find you, Sean?
Oh, you can find me on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify under Sitting with Sean. You can look for me there. Um, we have new episodes coming up every Wednesday. I'm trying to upload a little bit more like precise and frequently. I was doing it like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then I was like running out of content. So I just gotta stick to Wednesday, and I'll be fine. You can find me on Facebook under Sean Young, SEANYNUNG, not the actress. Um, um, you can find me on you or on Facebook and Instagram as well under Sitting with Sean. That's the official public figures page. You can reach out to me, talk to me anytime. I'm pretty easy to talk to. And then I'm on TikTok under the Beard of West Virginia, the Beard of WV. Yes.
which which for those people who are listening to the show and not seeing, it's because Sean has a huge beard.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually trimmed it up recently. It was almost down to my belly button. Now it's down to my sternum. Yeah. And I didn't brush it out today. I normally I put product in it, but this morning I was like, "You know what? I don't feel like being pretty this morning."
Feel hurt.
Hey, hey, you got to accept me for who I am, okay?
I know, I know. So I wanna thank you for opening up. I want to thank you for being a guest in this theme of new beginnings, and I want to Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. And there are so many elements that, for any of our listeners, you can relate to and you can see, and you can truly form better relationships. You can be a better human, you can be a better life companion to yourself. You're not necessarily for everybody just around you. And how important it is to show up, because life's got some magic, but it wants to show you as well. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you
Just
for
been
having me.
awesome. So, guys, thank you. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, or if you want to share with any of your friends or loved ones, then please do. Just like, comment below. We've got some more episodes coming up this month in the theme of new beginnings, and really starting to empower you, give you some gifts that are going to help you feel that you're in control, so that you can capture some of the magic of this season. It's just beautiful. So keep watching, listening, however you consume, and reach on out. And thank you very much. Cheers. Bye bye.